Welcome back to another Kray video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any videos. And for people really interested in the Krays, check out our private Facebook group, Krays, Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly and moderated group which has been running since January 2018. Please come and give us a try.
This is the story of two brothers, Chris and Tony Lambrianou, who chose to accept the code of the Krays.
In the East End of London, you know, it's either you run with a pack or you fall down. And everybody was quite poor. But I mean, they were very family orientated. I mean, very, very staunch, together people.
You must bear in mind, it's all families of brothers. You touch me and you've got 5 more brothers. And that's it more or less, all the families or people who got involved in big crime in the 60s and that came from families of brothers, and that stands out. That'll always stand out whatever way you look at it. You had the Krays, you had brothers in North London, you had the Richardsons this side, you had so many families of brothers. That's where your strength was, and there was no chance for the two guys. I mean, we didn't go out for the day to the museum, and they took us to the Nick, where they walked around Royal Scrubs. That's where you lot got wind up in. And I think that's how it was. Things were tough, and you had to steal what you got. I never got Christmas presents. I go out and nick them. So it was always there, and it's the way it had to be.
I started stealing lead, stealing bits and pieces and things like that, and graduated up. And then eventually I got arrested for breaking and entering, and I went to an approved school. And I was there for 3 years. I came out of there, and it was almost like a university. I went to the public school, and then I went on to Borstal. Then I graduated from there to a young offenders institution, and from there I did 3 years at the Burn prison for a safe blowing. So I mean, I was moving up the ladder and meeting different people all the time. What happened basically was the twins got to hear through members of the firm that we was up to something, and being the twins, they wanted some of the action.
They knew. Their grapevine was second to none. Unbelievable. They got to know everything that was going on. That interested them.
And I could get what I wanted the way I wanted by just being me. I could go along quietly, and I would have control of events. They were thoroughly professional. Oh, that's the way I saw them. And I really didn't want to get in that deep. Plus, I knew I'd heard rumours about some of the things they were involved in, which I felt were going to draw an awful lot of heat.
I didn't care about no one. Anyone trodden their toes, they'd go against them, and you knew that. And it was well known throughout London, throughout anywhere you went. People knew of them. And that attracted me, that side of it attracted me to them. I saw a lot of potential using them to get to our own benefits as well, obviously. And it worked.
Tony was very much part of them and liked it as well. And I was very, very fearful for him, to be honest. One day I gave one of the Kray associates a lift. And how are you doing, Chris? I said, I'm doing okay. He dropped me off from the Blind Beggar, he dropped me off at my house. Within half an hour, he was back at my house saying, well, the Krays wanted to see me, as Tony was with them. I thought, oh my God, you know, this is one I can't get out of. I don't really want to meet him. But Tony was there with him, you see, so yeah, okay, I'll go down there. And that was how I really got involved.
I thought it better to be in London. At least I was in the camp. And my brother would come down mostly weekends. During the week he'd be up the north, wherever he was, Nottingham, Birmingham, Manchester. Anything come up, he'd call me up, I'd come up. Anything that would be down, I'd bring them down. And this is how, virtually, we stepped into the McVitie murder.
The Regency Club in Stoke Newington was a frequent haunt of the Kray twins. One fateful night in autumn 1967, the Lambrianou brothers went there with some friends. The events that unfolded next were to change the course of underworld history.
When we get there, Jack McVitie's in there. Now, prior to this, Jack McVitie, when he had a drink, was a man who would let his mouth run away with himself. He'd pretend to phone them up in front of people, but he wasn't phoning no one up. This is just the way that Jack was. He had to have a dig. Jack was his own man. The twins had helped him. They gave him money. He'd pop pills like they were going out of fashion. And Jack was a man who had to have a drink and a good time. He was a typical, what you call a villain. He was over the counter, and what I mean by that, he'd been convicted of bank robberies, he had a record of violence. I'm just giving you a background of what Jack McVitie was like. And it came at a point where I think people started to get a bit fed up with him, bad-mouthing people.
And Jack came over, he said to me, Willie, that's good. He said, I'm back on the firm. I said, Jack, I never knew you was off it. And because, I mean, Jack wasn't somebody I associated with the Krays. I mean, Jack was a man who was okay, you know what I mean? Have a drink, he'd get a bit angry and aggressive and shout a lot. But basically, I didn't see him as being in the Krays league. You understand what I mean? He wasn't somebody who'd be their bosom pal.
All of a sudden, Reggie walked in. Now, right away I knew something was wrong. The way Reggie was reacting. We'd all been drinking that night, but he wasn't the man that I left in the pub. There's something that had gone on to change because he was biting his lip, Reggie. He wasn't sure. I always got the opinion he wasn't sure what was going on. And he said, who's downstairs? So I said, well, it was me, Chris, and nice. Check that down. I went, yeah. And he bit his lip. I come upstairs to get a pack of cigarettes out of the machine, and Tony Lambrianou walking towards me, the club owner. And he says to me, there's a party down at Loncal's.
So we go down to Loncal's house, which is Nevering Road, and we're having a bit of a joke on the way down. Then we go in, and we go down the stairs, and Jack goes running in the room, where's the party, where's the party?
When I walk in the room, I see Ronnie over the corner, watching television. It always stood in my mind because Henry Cooper is about to have a return fight with Kray, or Ernie at the time, and they were watching it on the box. And the next thing, Ronnie pushed past me, went on Tony, and he hit Jack on the eye of a glass, a gin glass, little glass it was, and he cut him under the left eye. But the next thing that happened, Reggie got a knife in his hand. And Hart pinned him for some reason, got hold of him. And he let him go, and Reggie tried to shoot him. But the gun failed to go off. It was a 32 Moors. It was a brand new one.
Come on, I mean, I don't believe this is happening. These are professional people. I mean, these are the most professional villains in London. You don't do these kind of things. I thought, what have I got myself involved in here? And I said to, I think it was Connie White, I said, Connie, I don't want no part of this. This is so out of order. And Ronnie Kray came out and he said, what's the matter with Chris? And Connie said he didn't come down here for this.
In the meantime, Jack jumped up, and this is what exactly happened. He walked over to the window and he punched the window. And the words he said were this, who do they think they are? And he punched the window in timber.
And for the first time I was scared. That's what I really felt. I've never told anybody that. And in some ways I felt a coward. There was a part of me wanting to run in and just help the guy out. And a part of me held back because Tony was there, and I mean, I didn't know what he knew or what he didn't know. So I'm really on the horns of a dilemma, you know. Whichever way I turn, I mean, I've got a sword hanging over my head.
When the gunfather got, I thought that would be it. But then again, I look back on it, and I think to myself, he had to go. You couldn't leave him free now. We'd set him up. We'd put him in the middle. There was no way out. Whatever way it did, he's going to have to go.
So Connie Whitehead said, come on, Chris, took me home in his car, and he drops me at the old man's house. And Connie and I done Warstall together. He said to me, Chris, don't go back. Whatever you do not go back to that house. I said, Connie, what about Tony? I said, forget about Tony. Tony will be all right. Do not go back.
The next thing that happened was a carving knife is thrust into Reggie's hand. Now things are moving fast, and all I saw was the knife. It must have stabbed him twice within seconds, because I seen him sag, and the next thing that happened, Reggie done him in the neck, and the knife arched. And I turned away then, and as I turned around again, I saw two Mills brothers run out of the room. And there's Jack on the floor. And he had a gash in his neck, which I would say went a third of the way around his neck. But he was dead, the blood was everywhere. And there was just this silence there for about 30 seconds. No one seemed to realise what had happened. Everyone was looking at each other. And all that happened then was Reggie saying to me, get rid of that, Tony. And they'd gone.
And I sat there and I thought, I can't leave Tony there, I've got to go back. So I've got a 38 Webley revolver laying about with a few, I've got a full loaded barrel, and I get it, and I get a cab, and I go back to Ebbing Road. I went downstairs, and there's the body laying there. But it's hard to understand unless you was in my boots. I just didn't think he was dead. I just couldn't imagine him. I mean, he's laying there in front of me. I thought he was going to come alive. I thought he was asleep. I just didn't think he was dead. Then we heard a knock from upstairs, and it was Tony.
I said to my brother and Ronnie Bent, I said, well, what do we do here? Now, the idea is to get him out of that flat. Now, our intention was to burn the place down, get the petrol, to throw it down the area and let the lot go. One thing stopped us. As I come up the stairs, I saw two children looking over the balcony. I think it was on the second floor, and they'd be looking over. Otherwise, the house would have gone up.
Went upstairs and got a quilt. You know, one of them big fleecy kind of quilts, the old-fashioned kind. Got one of them. Got Jack's body, put him on the quilt and wrapped it over. Left him in the middle of the floor and systematically went through the whole house, washing up glasses, carpet, pulled that up where there was blood stains and all that kind of thing. Come about maybe 3 o'clock, maybe between 2 and 3, where we ran the body out to the car, lifted up the boot and actually put the body in the blanket and all that in the car, in the boot of the car. Pulled the lid down.
We then have an argument about who's going to drive it away, because nobody wants to be seen that time in the morning. Now, bearing in mind that I don't know that the offside lamp is not on. It was a two-tone Zodiac, blue and cream, if I remember it right.
I and the other guy got in my car, and Tony set off in that car, in Jack's car. Now, we pull out and we get onto Mare Street, and we're going down Mare Street, and I've got this 38. Now, no way am I going to let anybody take Tony.
And the arrangement was, if I'd have been stopped, there would have been trouble. There was no way I was going to take a stop with that.
So there's a police car pulls up, gets between Tony and I thought, if they stop him, I'm going to get out and I'm going to do the business. And I let the other guy with me know that. Some reason or other, they turned off. And Tony went on, and he went through the Blackwood Tunnel, and I followed him up, and I went through it after him.
A few hours later, the car with McVitie's body in it was abandoned in South London. At Evering Road, work was already underway to remove all traces of the murder.
So we had a meet with them. The twins about a week later. They'd gone up the country in the meantime. And we had a meet at the Carpenter's Arms. And all that was ever said in it was a nuisance. Because my brother said to him, was he a grass? Was he a wrong? And they went, no, he was just nuisance. And that is what happened to Jack McVitie.
I think that there was some paranoia in the firm itself about who knew what, and people got very worried. And then we began to hear rumours about this person was being seen, that person was being seen. But in all honesty, I wasn't really worried. I wasn't worried because I hadn't done anything. I hadn't killed anybody. I'd not even lifted a finger. I weren't even there when it happens. Gradually, you can hear the drum beating. It's getting louder and louder.
The 34-year-old ex-boxer twins, Reginald and Ronald, came here early this morning with flying squad officers, and they're still here. They were in bed when the squad called at their home in Shoreditch at about 6 o'clock this morning.
Somebody said to me, "Have you heard about the Krays?" I said, "No, I haven't." He said, "They've all been arrested. They made a dawn raid." Well, it wasn't a matter of weeks before I was staying at a hotel called the Hearts in Walsall that the police made a raid there and brought me down to Tintagel House.
At their headquarters on the south bank of the Thames, the investigating team headed by Leonard Nipper Reed was searching for the first cracks in the wall of silence that protected the Krays.
You see, this was a conspiracy between a number of people. And when you get that situation, unless one or other is prepared to give evidence for the Crown, then it's impossible to break that silence. I tried it, as I've explained, with 3 of the participants, and all of them had rejected my overtures.
And if I said, "Well, do you want to talk to us now?" So I said, "No, I don't want to talk to you." "Why should I want to talk to you?" "Well, we are asking you what you know about the murder of Jack the Hat B." I said, "I don't know nothing." "Well, as we've got it, you were there but took no actual part in the murder. In fact, you quietly protested about it." I said, "I don't know what you're talking about."
But the persistence of Nipper and his team was rewarded. One after another, former Kray associates broke the criminal code of silence and turned Queen's evidence. The most damning witness of all proved to be Ronnie Hart, the Kray's own cousin.
Once Hart had decided to tell us who was present, what their involvement was, and the fact that they were present, of course, makes them guilty of the murder. Indeed, as guilty as Reggie Kray had actually wielded the knife. Once he had given that evidence, we could charge all of them, which we did.
He said, "You want to go down with him? You're going to go down with him. Don't stand no nonsense off him. Charge him."
Chris Lambrianou and his brother Tony were accused alongside Ronnie and Reggie Kray of the murder of Jack McVitie.
But the next thing I know is the Kray solicitors there, Freedy and Ralph Imes. So I'm not only defended, I mean, I'm lumped with them anyway. There's no way I can get out of it. If I want to change solicitors, I'm going to offend them. You understand what I mean? So really, there was no way of even fighting the case. And really, I mean, there were in many respects, anything you said to defend yourself put them in a very, very bad position. So invariably, we said nothing.
As far as the twins were concerned, it didn't happen. We can't be seen to be saying something did happen when they're denying all knowledge of it. That's a nail in their coffin. And bearing in mind, we were with them. We were involved here. It's not our row, but we were involved. So we've got to sing with them, whether we like it or not. People have said to me many times, I wouldn't have done that. But they haven't got to look in the mirror. It's me who's got to look in the mirror at the end of the day. And I have to live with that. And I couldn't stand the thought that anything I said would help to convict men and put them down for that length of time.
The joint defence failed. Ronald and Reginald Kray were sentenced to life with a recommendation that they should serve a minimum of 30 years. Chris and Tony Lambrianou were also sentenced to life. They didn't come out for 15 years.
Jail is a pretty tough place emotionally. There are very few people who don't cry. There are very few people that don't lose something, and invariably they lose themselves. And that is the reality. So You may look up to them people, but behind all that, the facade, you know, the reality is a lot different. Behind that person who's acting up is a mother who's crying, or a father in despair. You see, my first wife, I weren't the best of husbands. I cared more about other people than I actually cared about them and my young daughter. And I thought, who did I really love? Did I love my wife and my child? Or did I really love the Krays? Or did I love the honour of being part of the code? You understand what I'm saying? But it was too late to call back anything then, so I couldn't have any regrets on it. But there was a part, I don't think I could ever change what I did. I did what I did, and I had to learn to live with it. But I thought, if I ever get the chance again, I'm never going to put anything else before it. And I never have.
It was to cost me a hell of a lot more than they could ever give me. It cost me my family. My father died, my mother died. It cost me my brother. Look what happened to him. It was to wreck our families. But there's a sense of a pride in this, in as much as I stood with them at the end. I was in there when they were getting it, and I was there when it was getting dished out. What I'd like to know is the very people who sat up and done all the denouncing, who committed a lot of the acts of violence, were standing up there pointing the finger at them. And these were the very people who were dishing out violence and earning money out of it.
I can live with what I did. You understand what I'm saying? I can live with the fact that I didn't send anybody to prison. I can live that I didn't stand up in the dock and throw stones at Ronnie and Reggie Kray, or Charlie, or any of the others that were there. I don't think I could have lived with myself if I'd have done it. I'd done some very naughty things in my time. Nobody had ever thrown stones at me.
What I don't understand is the whole glory and aura around. That's where I think it's gone wrong, because I've never done that. You can't promote it. You can't make it right. But it's like Al Capone in America. He's not what he was in the 30s. He's something different in the 90s. Or Lucky Luciano. He's a hero now. But never forget what he was. Never forget what we were. We weren't good men, but we weren't bad, evil men. We kept amongst ourselves, and that was the end of it. The only bad feeling I feel about the business, what happened to my brother Chris? He should never have got a day.
I saw my father slave and come to different prisons all over the country because we were category A for 10 years, and he had to live. And then I'd hear somebody say they saw my father crying outside the prison. You want to tell me I didn't feel anything? What I felt was ashamed. Ashamed. And I once said to one of the train robbers, the man I really respected, and one man I met in prison, I looked at him and I respected, was a man called Bobby Walsh. And I said, Bob, I'm ashamed. Do you understand? I'm ashamed that we took a man or whatever and he died and I couldn't help him. That's the shame it lives in me, you understand? And maybe talking about it, you exercise it, I don't know. But that's the reality. I didn't come out of that feeling any glory. I didn't come out of it feeling I'm the big I am. I didn't come out of it feeling I'm one of the Kray firm. I'm ashamed of it.
He should never have got a day. Everyone knew that. That is well known. He had to sit there and take it. And how do you take life with a 15-year recommendation on the chin? You don't. At least I can get up and say, I've done that. And we discussed this over many periods of time, especially through prison and all the rest of it. He didn't deserve it. There was no justification. Because he was my brother, he had to go. Because he knew the Krays.
This was the final day after a long, long trial, one of the longest murder trials in criminal history. I can remember, as we're entering the Old Bailey, there were little old ladies banging on the side of the van. Queues were right the way round the block. It was almost like we were celebrities, and they were fattening us up for the tribal gathering. You know, we were the main course, as it were. I was actually charged with murder. I was given a life sentence, along with the Kray brothers. Although I had not taken any physical part, I spent 15 years in prison. I've been where Reggie Kray's been. 15 years was awesome. I could not imagine another 15 year on top of that. To take into account 30 years, when we went away, a Big Mac was a coat you wore. A chip was something you put in your mouth. Now, everywhere we look, there are chips which control our lives. He must think about death and awful lot at 65, although he keeps himself fit and he's fighting it like he's fought time. But how long can you fight it for, you know? In that room that night, madness reigned for such a short moment. But that madness for him has not gone away. He must have died a million times in there. I did, I know. Sometimes I felt it would have been better if they'd have hanged us. A lot of people died that night. I don't think just Jet died. Somebody told me that Reggie Kray sends letters out of prison with a photograph as he used to be, not as he is, because he lives in the past. Now, my argument is not that he lives in the past, is that nobody will let him live in the future. Nobody will let him live right now. No, I don't think society knows Reggie Kray. I think they've been presented with a TV dinner. That's Reggie Kray. There's nothing else to him. They've seen the books, they've seen the films, but they were all made by other people. They know nothing. They assume. And that's what he has to live with on a daily basis. It's where I had to live. And I look along this landing and I think about the hundreds, thousands that have gone behind the door of each cell. And how many people have been really rehabilitated? Not many. There was no rehabilitation for someone like me, as there really is no rehabilitation for somebody like Reggie Kray. Because we don't need it. It's non-existent. It's just a word in prison. We rehabilitate ourselves. We come to the conclusion of who we are and what's acceptable and what's decent, right and proper. I'd seen the absolute worst of human nature. I mean, I had messed up so many people's lives. Eventually it got to the stage where I couldn't wait to get back to the cell. That was the love affair, and I could shut the door and I could look out the sky. I'd seen nothing of nature for years, but here I could watch the starlings, and it never failed to amaze me about starlings. They could never be satisfied. The mother and father would run off and get them food, bring it back, bring them back, and they forever had an open mouth. I watched robins and sparrows having dust baths, things I didn't know birds did. And I began to open up and I began to look at nature in itself, and I saw that things died and things regenerated. I watched a tree, in the summer, beautiful green, and the flowers came up, and in the autumn the leaves began to drop and they died and they went to nowhere. Where were the things of beauty? But I had to wait for another season for them to come back. And I found that in my own life. As I've lost things, maybe for a short span of time, maybe a long span of time, but they have come back. The beauty has come back. It's about now and the few years that remain. There's always time for turning and getting back something of what you lost.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly, moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section. I hope we see you